Welcome to Tech Talk, a podcast dedicated toward creating community and support in the technology manager industry for AV and IT. My name is Steve Greenblatt, and with me today is my co-host, Marc LaVecchia. How's things going today, Marc?
Things are terrific. Good morning, good sir. How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you again.
Absolutely.
So this is our second episode, and in the past episode, we introduced ourselves, we gave a little bit of background behind what Tech Talk is, why it was created, and where we're looking to go with it. And basically, we want to be able to create content and value for technology managers, bring all the members of this community together, and provide a safe environment for learning and sharing. So with that said, it's the end of the summer, and I know that technology managers are probably getting ready to take a nice breath. And I know the beginning of the summer, they're usually, at least those in education, are coming off of a difficult semester. But the summertime is not all about relaxing. And Tim Albright wrote a nice article that I think would be great for us to talk about today, where he talked about the seasons of AV. And he, as a former technology manager, discussed the challenges that are faced by someone in education. And I know that there are budgets to be considered, fiscal years and so forth. And basically what he was saying is that at the beginning of a fiscal year in education is typically July. And that's when money and budgets are released. And that doesn't give very much time for a technology manager to get projects done and equipment ordered and designs created and installations completed before school starts. It's 8 weeks max. So I wanted to talk a little bit today, and Marc, perhaps you could share some stories, because I think that it's not only technology managers that face these challenges. We as service providers and integrators as well, the summertime can be challenging. And is this something that is just a given and we have to get used to it? And how do we tackle these high times, and what strategies can we use to lower some of the stress levels and make things go smoothly?
It's interesting. When I was reading Tim's article, it brought to my attention something that had never dawned on me, which was how the budget plays a role in terms of keeping the hands tied of technology managers to be more proactive, because they know how to plan their work, they know how to schedule what they're doing, but they can only do so much based on their own constraints. And so if they don't have the ability to spend the money to buy the equipment in a timely manner, they then become victims to, which is something else Steve brought up, and we both know quite a lot about, which is the lead time for manufacturers to be delivered. It could be anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, as he mentioned. And that's assuming that, we're talking about equipment that's on the shelf, or at least in the queue. If you go to Infocom or a show like that and you come out of it and you say, oh, I like this new equipment and I want to bring this into the classrooms this year, and you talk to the salesperson at Infocom and they say, oh yeah, it's going to be ready. Oh yeah, you can't wait. It's amazing. It'll be ready for school. And here's the model number. And so now the technology manager is in a position where they're waiting for their money to free up to buy a piece of equipment that may or may not be available to them. All that squeezes down into a schedule that is really, really tight. And his article, I encourage everybody, it's not a long article, it's not a long blog, but I encourage everybody to read that, because especially from an integrator standpoint, a service provider standpoint, it gives you a good eye into what technology managers get from a budget, scheduling, and delivery standpoint. It's scary.
Absolutely. I failed to share where you can find this blog. It's at avnation.tv/blog/seasons of AV. And if you just go to avnation.tv, you can check out Tim's blog. Tim is a great colleague of ours and somebody who's been a leader in podcasting and so forth. But I think to Mark's point, it's important so that for us as service providers to understand the challenges that are faced, because a lot of times we get information and we say, well, why did you wait so long to get this to us? And we were sitting here in the spring and we had availability, but now we're waiting. Now we're facing these crazy deadlines, and we only have so much bandwidth. And I think it's a time of year that we put in a lot of extra time, and of course we're looking to provide the best results for our customers. What are some of the things that we can do to help technology managers that may not even be associated with money, that can alleviate some of these stresses? Is there any pre-planning that we can do? Is there anything in your experience that you've seen that allows them to be able to hit the ground running, say, on July 1st?
Absolutely. First and foremost is talking to us is free. Okay, you don't need a purchase order to talk to us.
Absolutely.
You don't need to have a purchase order for us to swing by and look over your plans and discuss what you're trying to do. Let us be. I will use the analogy sometimes of a sous chef. The chef comes. They come into the kitchen and they dice up the vegetables and they get the seasonings all lined up, and then the chef comes in and puts it all together. If we can, in certain ways, become the sous chef, we can start putting together the pieces that you are going to need ultimately. Information will always be king. So if you contact your service providers in advance and say, this is what I'm looking at, this is what I'm doing, I don't know when the money is going to be released, or I don't know how fast the turnaround is going to be, and more importantly, what do you hear about the equipment? We saw this at Infocom. Have you put it in yet? Has anybody else put it in yet? If you had any issues with it, we don't want to have a tight deadline that is going to be held up by future wear. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to have the latest technology, but it's fine if it's the most advanced technology, but when the latest technology means that it's late getting to your product, then you're putting everybody in a bad position. So if you begin the process of talking to the service providers, bringing them in, meeting with them, sit down, have webinars, there's so many ways to collaborate right now in real time and say, this is what's coming, and this is when we expect it to happen. What are your thoughts? Where do you think? We can provide tremendous advanced knowledge in advance, so that when it comes down, we're not asking, why didn't you let us know, or how did this all happen? But we know about it. It's in our calendar. It's in the books, and we're ready to get going for it. We can even discuss the budget for you at that point. We can discuss all types of things to make your life easier.
I think you have an excellent point there, and one thing to add is that when we're working with a new piece of equipment, and I think that this holds true for an integrator and a programmer, it'd be great to be able to get a demo piece, and that has no cost associated with it, and perhaps some of that development and comfort level and the back end work can be done in advance. Maybe it's about putting together some of the touch screens or just talking through and getting a sense of what it's entailed in this project. And to me, what that comes down to is relationships. And if you have somebody who you have a good relationship with, who you intend to use, and you can pick maybe some specialty service providers that are going to be the best suited for a particular situation, I'm sure that they would also agree that talk is for free, and if as long as we know that this is going to be coming down the pike, maybe we can get some of the legwork done and get that out of the way. I know it still doesn't accelerate the delivery of equipment and installation, but some of the headaches and the variables of the system, I think, can be smoothed over.
Well, if you just think in terms of the control system by itself, which we're control systems folks, so we're a little centric about that, but if you think about that just by itself, if you think of all the questions that you're going to have to ask in this process prior to the system going in, if you can get all of those questions asked and answered and plotted out, what are going into the rooms, and never mind the make and the model, but what is going to make up that room, who's going to use the room, which of course determines how the room is going to function. When somebody walks in and they go up to a control system, what are they going to see? These are things we should talk about early in advance so that when you are in a crunch as a technology manager and you're working around the clock to get the system going, you don't have to stop now and go, oh, by the way, how is this room going to work?
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff is work we can do ahead of time that doesn't cost anything, that allows us to make your time more efficient with the understanding that we're probably going to do some work together, and maybe we're not, but the resources are there for you to reach out and start putting together the pieces of the puzzle that you have control over at this point. And then, like you said, I'm looking at this piece of equipment and we're thinking about bringing it in. Have you seen it? Have you used it? Can you get one? Also remember that your service providers have a tendency to work with multiple disciplines out there. And so what I mean by that is that there are probably people that are already they're not waiting for a budget. They have their budget in the commercial world. They're already buying this stuff and putting it in. What have we seen? What have you experienced? We typically have very tight relationships with the manufacturers. We can go in a back door at the manufacturer and say, what's going on here? I know the salesperson's saying this is the date. Is it really the date? Or is this something that we should maybe think about putting in the next quarter or something like that? The amount of knowledge that comes from the service providers is valuable, and just reaching out, like we said, doesn't cost anything.
Sure. And to take that a little bit further, too, in the position that you and I are in, where we both are business owners, and we like to be able to predict what we're looking at. So perhaps there's big projects coming down the line, maybe they're 3, 4, 6 months, a year out. It'd be great for us to be able to know that, to be able to start to prepare for them, leave some room in our calendar or in our schedule, allocate resources, and possibly even do some hiring if we know that it's significant enough of an effort. Because the last thing that we want to do is let somebody down, and we certainly value those relationships, and we want to be able to be there. It's just being able to flex our capabilities on a short amount of notice is, I think, a tough thing, and a lot of the challenge that we all face.
Well, and one of the other we tend to face that technology managers have taught us anyway, and actually we learned it the hard way, my company did, which is, in the standard commercial world where you're doing a boardroom or a training room or something like that for a private company, sometimes the trades just hold things up. And the power doesn't get in on time, the furniture is not showing up, and you've got a panel going in the lectern, and the lectern is backed up. So all of a sudden, it's not unusual at all in our business to get somebody say, the job's been pushed out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And we, as a service provider, have a tendency to, we try not to, but we'd be lying if we said we didn't get complacent with that. So we try to stay ahead of those schedules to make sure whether they're going to move or not. And we learned the hard way that with technology managers, their schedule does not shift. They have a day that those classrooms open. They have a day those students show up and the instructors walk in, and those rooms need to be ready, and there is no slippage. If there is slippage by somebody else, it doesn't matter. Everybody's going to be working around the clock to get those systems up and going anyway. So we learned the hard way because we took on a number of projects that were educational projects, and they all hit at the same time with no room to bend. And that was a mistake on our point from a few years ago, but we learned from it, and now we're very careful in terms of the projects that we take educational-wise, and we make sure that we can meet those deadlines without any question. Now, we made our deadlines, but when we got done, everybody had long gray hair, and their skin was sagging, and they're drooling and stuff like that. So it was
the long part didn't seem to affect you though.
Well, no, and we'd be foolish if we tried to explain to people that we have the perfect solution for everything. We don't. And the reality is that what we do on a regular basis changes almost daily. I mean, you and I, we talk about it all the time. While the type of business we do stays pretty consistent, the nature of the business, what happens during the beginning of an order to the end of a project, changes from job to job, person to person. And so while it freaked us out initially with all those jobs hitting at the same time, it taught us an amazingly valuable lesson to be more proactive and staying on the schedules and reaching out to people who need us. We have universities right now reaching out to us going, I got a room. It's due in 3 weeks. Can you help me? And I'm going, I want to, but I can't.
Sure.
And if I'd have just known about this 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 3 months ago, we'd be able to help. So we've learned our lesson, and technology managers ultimately learn theirs. But I think at the end, if we can begin the conversation sooner, like you said, it's a big help.
Right, and I think the same. We've been focusing on education, but one of the things that can be transferable to a corporate client is an end-of-year budget. Many years we find that there's an increased demand come, say, November, December, where money needs to be spent and systems need to get in, and now you're talking about conflicts with holidays and so forth, vacation time, and it tends to become messy. And I think that we want to be able to be there, and we want to be able to be relied upon, but there's hopefully some measures that we can take to prepare in advance, because we understand, and we want to understand more what those challenges are, and be able to be as accommodating as possible.
Well, in the end, we have to pay the bills. And one of the things that people tend to forget is that how easy or difficult it is for us to pay the bills will determine what type of project we're allowing ourselves to get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, we found that if we reach out in advance to the customers to make sure, and I know you do this a lot too, saying, what's in the queue? What do you have coming in? And try to recognize that this is a busy time of year. And we know that this is a busy time of year. We take the private industry, we talk about educational, we talk about private in terms of their budgets, but another part of it is local government, federal, state governments, who I think are the worst at, the federal government in particular, is the worst at, we have money, this is what it is, this is when it's got to go in, and that money, that schedule will almost never change. They always stand there and go, we're giving you the money, you better get this room done. And it's a very stressful time, and it burns people out. And so we can choose to pick if we're doing our jobs as service providers, we can pick the jobs that we know make the most sense for us, and that's the best way we try to run our business. Simultaneously, we want to help our friends, we want to help our customers, we want to help our partners. And so if they come to us and go, I'm in a jam, I need some help. But the way to keep from being in a bad position with your service providers is to just throw out a flag, throw out a note. I've got this coming. This is what it's going to entail. We're still working out the details. We need to sit and talk about it. And once we have that, regardless of what type of industry it is, once we have that information, we've got it on a calendar, we're immediately going to make your life easier.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I think that the more we can work together and be in the know and be able to plan. Just one other thing to throw out along the lines of an example of something that can be done that is less time sensitive is stuff like remote management and connections with, say, RMS from AMX, or Fusion from Crestron, or Global Viewer from Extron. Those types of packages, those are things that are purely software, and if you want to find some ways to be able to enhance those capabilities, and if that's a priority for you in this upcoming summer, let's put that in the beginning of the queue so it doesn't get squeezed out at the end when all the chaos is happening and we're trying to make the deadlines.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's so often that somebody in the end will say, oh, you know what, we got to get this in there. I think the bottom line is there's a lot that we as service providers can do in advance, in anticipation, without the technology manager having to wait for funds to be freed up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work we can do on the front of it. I was really struck by Tim's article. That the thrust of his article was, I was a technology manager, I'm not anymore. And now that I'm not anymore, this is the first time I've sat in August with a cup of coffee on my porch, not stressing over rooms going in,
Right.
And he really hit a nerve that I thought, wow, I can only imagine. We've watched them. We've been doing some universities. I'm sure you have as well this summer. The projects have been going very well. But
Sure.
there's always those last minute, oh, I forgot these rooms or I have this, and that's where the stress comes in. And when the stress starts compounding, it's not a question of room anymore, it's a question of the people that are doing it. We preach this a lot. If you're people that are doing this, whether it's the technology managers, their staff, the service providers, if the people that are doing this are overly stressed, then while the room may get done or the system may get done, the fallout personally is going to hurt, because it takes a lot physically and mentally to do this. And if you're overly stressed out and losing sleep and having a hard time, yeah, the room's going to get done, but now you've lost your connection to it, and the experience is not good for anybody. And that's total opposite of what we're all trying to accomplish.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I'd be curious to hear some stories from this summer, and I know that this is that crunch time of year, but moving forward as we move into the fall, we're going to be looking at bringing on some guests, and we're also trying to continue the conversations on our LinkedIn group, so hopefully we can get some of those experience shares happening, and maybe there are some aha moments that can be of value to others that are stressing.
Well, and I think one of the things we talked about, which I'm looking forward to doing, is bringing in an integrator. In other words, what Tim showed us was the back door of the technology manager, okay, saying these are the things that we deal with in our world that are inevitable and a part of our daily business. You don't see this. It was very enlightening to me. I knew in the back of my head budgets, schedules, things. I knew it, but he really put it in a very simple term. And what I'm hoping we can do next is to bring in an integrator that deals with technology managers and have them show the backdoor relationship we have with that as a service provider, so that we can start better understanding each other's idiosyncrasies and schedules, expectations, so that we can all collectively plan better. Not all technology managers use integrators, but at the same time, I think that the dynamic there can bring some value to everybody. So I'm hoping that's the next step we're going to take on this.
Absolutely, and hopefully that will be a big value to our audience. So just switching gears, talking about our audience, Infocom has a new trade show coming up in Philadelphia, and we touched on it a little bit in our last episode. And it's called Infocom Connections, and it's going to be in Philadelphia on October 22nd. And it's really interesting because it's geared specifically for technology managers. And I don't think I've ever seen a show that is that Infocom at least has put on, or another bigger organization that is specific for technology managers. So what I guess would be something that a technology manager would need to see at a trade show, or what would be more appealing to them versus going to a trade show where they're maybe in the minority and they're there with other service providers, and they are not that they, although they are the end user, they're not the target audience.
Well, from all of my years of working at a manufacturer, we always welcome the opportunity to set up a small booth to go at a niche market. And they've always existed out there in some way, shape, or form, and this is the first I've seen them doing it for the technology managers. In fact, I think they're also doing one here on the West Coast as well, a little bit later in the year.
Yes.
So, which I'm sure would be much more appealing than Philadelphia in October. But I think that anytime now you're seeing more and more manufacturers have people dedicated to the technology manager, that person can go to the show, set up a booth, and talk to them one-on-one, where now all of a sudden you're not fighting for Infocom time. You're not in a booth trying to find the right person to get your answers. The right person for you is there, and you just need to make the time to spend a day. Now, I think the event is for one day, correct?
It is. And it's kind of an interesting structure, too, because it starts a little later in the day, it ends a little later in the day. There's a networking reception or networking breakfast. There's a cocktail reception, I believe. It's kind of an interesting format.
Well, I think we all know that if you put breakfast on one end of it and booze on the other, they will come, you know. But but I think that the number of people. Do you remember how many exhibitors they've got right now scheduled for this?
So they're looking for about 30 or so exhibitors, and they're looking for about 500 or so attendees, according to what Infocom has told us. And it is regional, so we have to look at it from that perspective. And it is intended to be a day trip. I don't see somebody coming. Well, I guess you could, but I would think that the way they've structured it, they're probably expecting that somebody comes in the day of and either heads out that night or first thing the next morning.
Well, I'd be curious, anybody's out there that's watching, that's planning on attending this. I think you're going to be there. Yes.
Yes. So we, my company is going to take a booth, and then we're also going to be promoting TechTalk and looking to engage with the technology manager community and try to create some involvement and awareness and hopefully get to know them a lot better.
Yeah, so I think that'd be a great opportunity if anybody's watching this, they want to get out there, they're going to be at the show. We'd be kind of curious to see what your take is on the show after the fact. I think we can really have a conversation with some folks that are planning on attending it. I don't know that you're going to find anybody from my neck of the woods. I'm out in California, but we'll follow our side as well and make our attempts to set up shop here and get a feel for it, because Infocom has done this in the past to great success, and I suspect that this may take a little while for the wheels to get greased, but when it does, I think that this is going to really help put technology managers on the map for the Infocom world, even more so come next year's show in Orlando.
Yes.
Orlando.
One of the things that I think is interesting is that the manufacturers are starting to really identify a lot more with technology managers, and I've been talking to people that have been either approaching us or we've been approaching them about how we can build these relationships, and they're curious about TechTalk. But I think the manufacturers are taking upon themselves now to reach out and educate and engage with the technology manager, whether it's because they know that they're their end customer or it's because they feel that this is a community that needs to be supported better. It's really great to see that technology managers are becoming more of a stronger voice within the AV industry and are a formal group, and the recognition, I think, is important.
Well, it is important, and I sometimes get in trouble for speaking this kind of truth, but the larger manufacturers are going to do this, in fact, because what they have found is that the technology managers are smarter. They have more access to information about their products and so forth than ever before. In the past, the technology managers would have to wait for an integrator, or maybe they'd make it to a trade show. But now because of the internet, they've got access to everything. And they're smarter than they've ever been. They have more ability to compare and contrast the equipment that's out there without having to worry about bringing it in first. They can talk firsthand. They've got the budgets now to go to the shows. But in the end, the manufacturers look at the technology managers and go, holy crap, these guys have a ton of money. We better put somebody on the front and get them engaged. That's not, we're supposed to say, well, we want to provide better service and we want to do this. But in the end, the manufacturers see the money and they want to, if they can justify assigning a person or a department to technology managers to start giving them marketing materials, text sheets, specs, and stuff like that, and get them in there early and meet with them directly early. And it's just beginning, I think. I think that you're going to find that grow. I look forward in a year from now when we talk about the show in Philadelphia or wherever else they do it on the Eastern Seaboard specifically for technology managers, how many people are exhibiting, how many people are attending, or more importantly, how many other shows they're going to put on throughout the United States. Are they going to hit the Midwest and move around? I think they're going to be able to justify that quickly. So I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here, and I think it will pair very nicely with what we're doing with TechTalk, and I look forward to meeting people there, and we're reporting on it afterward. I think it's going to be a nice advancement and a great way to be able to forge those relationships and continue the dialogue that we started at InfoComm 14.
Yeah.
So I guess we're coming close to the end of our show for today, but as a teaser for the future, as Marc alluded to, we're looking to bring on some guests, and please reach out if this is something that you would be interested in as a listener. We hope to be able to bring some more of your colleagues to the show and have some more dialogue with them about what they're seeing out there, what their experiences are, how what they do can provide value to other listeners. But we're also looking at bringing on some other types of members of the community who are outside the technology manager family. So whether it's an integrator or a manufacturer that may have something that can be a good topic of discussion for us. And
yeah. Maybe bring in some consultants as well, I think would not be a bad idea. I see out here on the West Coast, technology managers are turning more to consultants to help them get the ball going on the larger projects. So I'm looking forward to bringing in some of our contacts to share in this venue as well.
Absolutely. So I guess we're going to say goodbye for now. Marc, can you share how listeners can get in touch with you?
Sure. You can find me at Marc LaVecchia with my, 59 now, Ooh. Twitter followers. Very popular. But of course, at bmasoftwaresolutions.com or Marc with a C at bmasoftwaresolutions.com.
Excellent. And we would both like for you to check out the TechTalkAV.com website. Please sign on to the newsletter. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook. We have a LinkedIn private group for technology managers that we would love for to get rolling and continue the discussions and engagement. And we are in the process of putting together a new revamped website, which we hope to unveil within the next month or two. So to reach me, you can get me on Twitter at Steve Greenblatt, LinkedIn, and so forth, and my company website is controlconcepts.net. But that's all we have for today. We look forward to speaking to you in a future episode.
Adios, my friend.